It's been so long since this happened that a lot of the details are kind of blurry now. It's not like it was yesterday, you know? But I'll do my best to remember how everything went down. It was the last day of school and I was in 4th grade. Back then, 4th grade was the final year in our elementary school where kids had to be picked up by their parents. Once you hit 5th grade, you could finally walk home on your own, which felt like a huge deal at the time. My mom usually picked me up on the last day of school, but this time was supposed to be special. My friend Dennis and I had a play date planned to celebrate the start of summer. Dennis wasn't in my class that year, but we'd been friends since kindergarten, so we were pretty close. When the final bell rang, everyone was buzzing with excitement. We lined up single file, walked down the hallway, and waited outside by our teacher, Ms. Blue. I remember standing there, looking through the crowd of parents coming in and out of the parking lot, waiting to spot Dennis's dad, because that's who was supposed to pick me up. Then I heard someone call my name. Tommy. Tommy! I turned and saw a man waving at me walking toward us. He smiled and said he was Dennis's uncle and that he was there to pick me up. I didn't think much of it. I mean, he seemed friendly and I figured maybe Dennis's dad couldn't make it. So I went over to Ms. Blue and told her, "I'm being picked up." She looked around and asked, "Where is he, sweetie?" I pointed to the man. He gave her a little wave and she waved back. Then Ms. Blue nodded and said, "Okay, you're good to go." And just like that, I left with him. He led us through the crowd, moving fast like he couldn't wait to get out of there. He talked a lot. His words came out quick and shaky, almost like he couldn't catch his breath. I remember thinking he sounded nervous, but I brushed it off. I was just a kid. I tried to keep up, my backpack bouncing with every step. He told me Dennis's dad had to work late, so he was the one driving me instead. It sounded believable enough, but something felt a little off. When we reached his car, a dark red hatchback, kind of old and beat up, I felt this weird chill in my chest. Something about it didn't sit right, but I still got in. It suddenly hit me. Something wasn't right. Where was Dennis? Why weren't we picking him up too? The question echoed in my head until I finally asked. The man glanced at me through the rearview mirror and said, "Dennis is already at my house." His voice was calm, almost too calm. I remember sitting there, frozen, staring out the window. I didn't want to sound rude or question an adult, but deep down, something felt off. None of it made sense, and that uneasy feeling in my stomach just kept growing. The whole drive, the man just kept talking nonstop. He told random stories about when he was a kid, laughed at his own jokes, and kept asking me things like what sports I played or what we were learning in school. I tried to smile and answer, but something felt weird. We'd been driving for about 10 minutes, and that didn't make sense. My house was only a 5-minute walk from school. I looked out the window and none of the streets looked familiar. That's when my heart started to race. I had no idea where we were. When he finally parked, I looked out the window and saw what looked like a normal house. Nothing strange, nothing creepy, just an average home on a quiet street. But the second we stepped inside, everything changed. He closed the door behind us and I heard the click of the lock. The whole place was dark, like way too dark for daytime. Every curtain was shut tight, not a single bit of sunlight coming in. The only light came from a weak little lamp in the corner, glowing just enough to make out the shapes of the furniture. It felt like the whole room was holding its breath. He looked at me with this weird smile that didn't feel right. I asked, "Where's Dennis?" And suddenly his whole vibe changed. He started stuttering, eyes darting around, and said, "Oh, he's downstairs playing video games. Just wait here." Then he rushed off into another room, and I heard a door creak open, followed by slow footsteps going down into the basement. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. That's when I knew I was in danger. I ran to the door and tried to open it as quietly as I could, but it wouldn't budge. There was some kind of lock, one that needed a key. Panic hit me fast, but a tiny part of me still hoped Dennis would come up those stairs. Deep down, though, I knew he wouldn't. And all I could think was how much I regretted ever walking into that house. I did the only thing I could think of. My hands were shaking as I ran to the kitchen and saw an old phone hanging on the wall. I grabbed it, pressed it to my ear, and dialed 911. When the operator picked up, I whispered, "Please come to this house. I've been kidnapped." They answered back, saying they heard me, but I couldn't risk another word. My heart felt like it was going to explode. I hid the phone under a towel in the corner, leaving the line open, and rushed back to where the man had left me. I could already hear his footsteps coming up the stairs. Then he called my name, saying, "Come down, Dennis is down here." He paused, then repeated my name again, louder this time. I stayed silent, frozen. He came up fully, eyes searching for me. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice soft but off somehow. My stomach turned. I hated myself for walking into this. I barely got the words out, asking if I could leave. His fake smile melted away the moment he realized I wasn't playing along anymore. Slowly, gently at first, he stepped closer until he grabbed my wrist hard and started dragging me toward the basement. I screamed, begged, tears running down my face. He snapped at me, "I'll let you go if you stop and behave." In a panic, I stopped fighting. We reached the stairs, and halfway down, the door slammed behind me with a loud, final click of the lock. When I walked fully down those stairs, my whole body was shaking. The basement looked like something out of a nightmare. Cold, empty, with one single support beam standing in the middle and that sick yellow light barely glowing from above. It felt like the kind of place people disappeared in. I could hear his footsteps moving upstairs, slow and heavy, and every sound made my heart stop for a second. I didn't know what he was doing, but he walked around for a while before calling down, asking if I was hungry. I said no, because I didn't want him going into the kitchen and realizing the phone was gone. The second I heard the door lock again, I knew I was trapped, and all I could do was pray that someone was on their way. The silence down there was unreal. My heart was pounding so loud that it filled the whole room. Then suddenly I heard it, the doorbell ringing. Once, twice, 3 times. Then loud banging sounds followed, heavy and sharp. My chest felt like it was going to explode. I knew those were the police. I wanted to scream, but forced myself to wait until I heard the door finally burst open. I could hear shouting, running, chaos above me, and that's when I screamed as loud as I could, banging on the door, begging for help. When it finally swung open, a police officer grabbed my arm and pulled me out. I can still remember the cold air hitting my face as I stepped outside. There were flashing lights everywhere, 3 cop cars, officers yelling into radios, and the man, my so-called fake uncle, being dragged out in handcuffs. My parents got there soon after, and my mom broke down crying the moment she saw me. It turned out that man was a work associate of Dennis's dad. He somehow found out Dennis's dad was supposed to pick us up that day and decided to use it to his advantage. He was a complete psychopath. To this day, I don't know how he even knew what I looked like, and honestly, I don't want to. My mom and I went through months of counseling after it all, and the guilt never fully left me. But I also learned something important. Your instincts exist for a reason. If I hadn't trusted that feeling in my gut or made that 911 call, I wouldn't be here telling this story. It's been 17 years now, and that man might be out of prison, but I refuse to let fear control my life anymore. I just hope whoever's listening right now understands this. Danger doesn't always come wearing a mask or carrying a weapon. Sometimes it smiles at you, pretends to be someone safe, and waits for the moment you let your guard down. So please, stay careful, trust your gut, and if something feels wrong, don't ignore it. You might not get a second chance. It was junior year, the very last day of school, and honestly, no one was planning to stay the whole day. Most kids either skipped or dipped out right after lunch, and my friends and I were definitely part of that group. The weather that day was wild. Gray skies, thunder rumbling in the distance, rain hitting the windows like tiny pebbles. The big plan was supposed to be a beach hangout, but with the storm rolling in, that idea was totally dead. Still, none of us wanted to just go home. We wanted to do something memorable, something we talk about for years. That's when Eddie brought up the old abandoned elementary school on the edge of town. It had been empty for over a decade, the kind of place people whispered about. Broken windows, graffiti-covered walls, and a playground that looked frozen in time. There were rumors they'd tear it down by the end of the year, so we figured, why not check it out while it's still there? No security cameras, no teachers, no rules. Just us, an empty school, and a storm brewing overhead. Eddie had his car and his license, so after lunch we piled in, laughing, not realizing that this stupid, random idea would turn into one of the scariest experiences of our lives. The school sat quietly in the middle of a forgotten neighborhood, surrounded by cracked sidewalks and half-dead trees. The back parking lot was hidden behind thick, overgrown bushes, like nature itself was trying to bury the place. The walls were stained, windows dusty, but it wasn't boarded up, just locked and left to rot. It felt too easy, almost like the building was waiting for someone to come inside. Eddie grabbed a baseball bat from his trunk, grinning like this was the best idea ever. My heart was racing, and the rain pounding on the car made everything feel louder, more tense. He took a deep breath and swung hard. The crack of glass echoed through the air, sharp and hollow like the school itself had just gasped awake. We all froze for a second, waiting to see if anyone heard. Nothing but just the sound of rain and our shaky laughter. Eddie brushed the shards from the frame with the bat, then turned to us with this wild look and motioned for us to come over. That's when I realized there was no turning back. One by one, we climbed through the broken window, rain dripping off our clothes and echoing in the quiet hallway beyond. I kept telling myself, they're tearing this place down soon, so who cares about one window? But the second my feet hit the dusty floor, something about the air felt wrong. It was heavy, still, like the building had been holding its breath for years. The room looked frozen in time, tiny desks scattered around, faded posters peeling off the walls, and a chalkboard with faint writing still visible. Judging by the decorations, it must have been a 4th or 5th grade classroom. For a second, none of us said a word. It didn't feel like we'd just broken into a school. It felt like we'd stepped into someone else's forgotten memory. It was surreal being inside what used to be a real classroom, where kids once laughed and learned. Now it was nothing but a cold, empty space filled with dust and silence, waiting to be destroyed. Thunder rumbled outside, and every flash of lightning lit up the broken desks and torn posters. For just a second, like the room was remembering its past. There were no lights, no power, just us and our phone. The glow from our flashlights bounced off the walls, and even though the day was dark, a faint light still crept in through the cracked windows, making everything feel alive. But wrong. We started walking through the long, empty hallways, going from one classroom to another. Every room was still packed with old desks and dusty chairs that hadn't been touched in years. It felt like time had just stopped. Then, out of nowhere, a sound echoed down the hall. We froze. The air went still. The only thing we could hear was the rain hitting the roof. A flash of lightning lit up the room, and for a split second, we thought we saw movement, but nothing was there. We told ourselves it was just the wind and kept going, our wet shoes squeaking with every step. So much for sneaking around quietly. Everything in the school was falling apart. Paint peeling, ceiling tiles hanging loose, the smell of mold thick in the air. You could tell no one had been here in forever. As we got close to the corner of the hallway, I turned around just to check behind us. That's when I saw it. Something like a leg or maybe an arm sticking out from one of the classroom doors. I froze. "Do you guys see that?" I whispered. My friends aimed their flashlights toward the door, and just then, that thing, it pulled back inside. All four of us whispered, "Oh shit," at the same time, and we bolted down the hallway without even thinking. We finally stopped running when we thought we were far enough away. The halls looked different now. Bright painted murals of animals and numbers on the walls told us we'd stumbled into the kindergarten wing. For a second, we tried to catch our breath, but then another sound echoed down the hallway. It wasn't the storm, it wasn't the wind, it was something else, and it sent chills up my spine. The place was locked tight. No one was supposed to be here. Who could it be? Fear took over and we ducked into the first classroom we found, slamming the door shut and killing our flashlights. The room was small, with tiny chairs and colorful drawings fading on the walls. We sat there in silence, barely breathing, as rain pounded the roof and thunder cracked every few seconds. Then, without warning, the door handle clicked. It turned slowly, and the door creaked open all the way, but no one stood there. The hallway beyond was almost pitch black. That's when something started to emerge through the doorway, just a faint shape at first, but then clearer. The outline of a head. I'll never forget that moment. The flash of lightning burned the image of that face into my mind. Still, lifeless, and staring right at us like it wasn't even human. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it over the thunder. We didn't wait for answers. Eddie went first, then my friends, and finally me. I crawled through the window as fast as I could, terrified I'd feel a hand grab my legs. When we finally made it back to the car, none of us spoke a word. We just drove off, shaking, rain slamming against the windshield. The school was torn down later that year and turned into a park, but that night has never left me. We still don't know who or what we saw, if it was a worker, a stranger, or something else entirely. All I know is it was the creepiest moment of my life, and even now, telling this story gives me chills. When I was a freshman in college, I took this chemistry class that absolutely wrecked me. It was hard, like the kind of class that makes you question if you even belong in college. The desks were grouped in fours and I sat near the left side of the room at the very end. Next to me was this guy named Zach. He was different, kind of awkward, like the quiet type who never really fit in. He wasn't tall, maybe 5'8", a bit overweight, with this messy, patchy beard that looked like it was still trying to grow in, but he was smart, like scary smart, especially in chemistry. He noticed how much I was struggling and started helping me out, explaining things, letting me peek at his notes, even offering to do some of my homework. I didn't get any weird vibes from him at first. He was just quiet, nerdy, and honestly seemed harmless. So when he asked for my number for homework stuff, I didn't think twice. I mean, he was helping me so much. Looking back now, that's when things started to get strange. Fast forward to the last day of class, and out of nowhere, Zach did something I never saw coming. He asked me out, like on a date. My stomach dropped. I wasn't into him at all, not even a little. We were total opposites, and honestly, the thought of it just felt off. But he had helped me so much that semester. keeping my grade afloat, so I tried to let him down as gently as I could. I lied and told him I was going to Miami for a couple of weeks, hoping that distance would make him lose interest. Without missing a beat, he said, "What about when you get back?" My heart dropped. I tried to play it cool, saying something vague like, "Yeah, maybe I'll be around." He just smiled, nodded slowly, and said, "Cool," in this weird, unsettling way, like he already had plans I didn't know about. The way he looked at me made my skin crawl, like he wasn't hearing my words at all, just watching, memorizing. In that moment, I realized this wasn't just a harmless crush anymore. From that moment until class ended, everything felt tense and awkward. I could feel his eyes on me the whole time, like he was waiting for something. The second the bell rang, I grabbed my stuff and rushed out without even looking back. I wasn't sticking around for small talk. I headed straight to my car, heart pounding, and drove home as fast as I could. Since I was a commuter and not living on campus, that last day of class should have been the end of it. No more awkward moments, no more creepy stares. At least, that's what I thought. It was Thursday night, and my friends wanted to celebrate the end of the semester, so we went out to town. We were laughing, drinking, just having fun, funnily free. Then my phone buzzed. It was Zach. "When are you going to Miami?" he texted. I rolled my eyes and showed my friends. I told them the whole story, how he helped me get an A, but now he wanted a date. They laughed and teased me, saying I should just go out with him to be nice. I laughed too and said sarcastically, "Yeah, sure, why not?" But deep down, I hoped he'd just move on and forget about me. I saw his text that night, but told myself I'd reply later. I was too drunk to care. The next morning, I woke up to 2 new messages. The first was just a voicemail, and the second said, "You're going to ignore me now that you don't need me anymore, right?" My stomach dropped. I quickly typed back, "Hey, sorry, I was packing. I'm going to Miami today." Within seconds, he replied, "Okay." That should have been the end of it. But deep down, something about how fast he answered made me uneasy. There was no Miami trip, and I prayed he'd never find that out. Later that night, my friends and I went out again trying to have fun when my phone buzzed with a text from Zach. "I thought you said you were going to Miami tonight." My heart sank and I almost dropped my drink. I showed my friends and they were just as freaked out as I was. I texted back, "What do you mean?" And he replied, "Nothing, forget it. I just don't like liars." At that moment, real fear hit me. Was he watching me? I scanned the whole bar but didn't see him anywhere, or at least I thought I didn't. My hands shook. I didn't reply again, and deep down, I knew I never would. It was late that night, just after I got home, literally taking my shoes off, when I heard knocking at the door. It had to be around 1 a.m. My stomach dropped. I called out, "Who is it?" And my blood ran cold when I heard Zach's voice say, "It's me." I wanted to scream. I was home alone. Shaking, I yelled through the door, "Leave or my dad will come out and kick your ass." That seemed to work because the knocking stopped. My hands were trembling as I texted everyone I knew, my family, my friends, telling them what just happened. Some said to call the police right away. I was horrified but said I'd go to the nearest station tomorrow. After that night, everything changed for me. I wasn't just scared, I was shaken to my core. The idea that someone I'd once trusted as a classmate, a teaching assistant, could twist everything into something so dark still makes my skin crawl. For days, I couldn't sleep. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach dropped. I kept imagining him showing up again, waiting somewhere, watching. But as the hours turned into days and then weeks, he really was gone. The police followed up, my dad stayed on top of it, and Zach completely vanished. No more calls, no messages, nothing. It was like he'd evaporated. You'd think I'd feel relieved. And in some ways I did, but there was also this weird, heavy sadness. Because for a while, I blamed myself. I kept asking, did I do something wrong? Did I lead him on somehow? But the truth is, no one deserves to be made to feel unsafe. Ever. No one deserves to be manipulated or stalked just for saying no. Looking back, I'm proud that I trusted my gut when things started to feel off. I'm proud that I told someone, that I didn't try to handle it alone. If I hadn't, who knows how bad it could have gotten. I'm sharing this because I want everyone watching to understand you never owe anyone your time, your energy, or your comfort. If someone's behavior makes you uneasy, don't brush it off. Tell someone, take it seriously. It's better to seem dramatic than to end up in danger. That night taught me that real horror stories don't always happen in haunted houses or dark woods, but sometimes they happen in classrooms, from people who seem completely normal on the outside, but it also taught me that you can get through it. You can take your fear and turn it into strength. So if you ever feel like something isn't right, please listen to that voice inside you. Speak up, reach out, and protect yourself. You deserve to feel safe always.